What's up, everybody, and welcome to an all-new Casters of Horror. I'm Chris Mess.
I'm Shane, and this week we're breaking down Deadstream.
Oh yeah. Bringing it kind of full circle to the YouTube whatever mess that we do. So anyway, but before we jump into today's review, Shane, we got a little bit of movie news. So you got a couple things. I'll let you kick those off.
Yeah, so first I want to mention on the YouTube channel, we did recently do a trailer reaction for the movie Thorns. So trailer reaction news.
News.
Yeah, so no, I don't know. It's what is it, like 6-7 minutes long? It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's like 6.5, 7. Yeah, somewhere in there.
It's also our most watched video, so go check that out. And
it's Thorns from Doug Bradley.
From
Hellraiser fame. So his new film.
And Thorns, I think we determined, could basically have been a Hellraiser
film.
Direct to video. So, but whatever.
Pretty much.
So
go check it out. That's on our channel. It's in the playlists that say trailer reactions. So
that's a good place for it.
Yeah, we're hopefully going to do a few more of those, or a lot more of those coming up. But anyway, what else you got for us?
All right, so this one, I've only got one actual news story this week, and I kind of just thought it was funny. Puppet Master, long-running movie series. It was announced a little over a year ago that it would be getting a video game, and that video game goes into open beta on March 1st.
Really?
So, yeah, you can take on the role of your favorite Puppet Master character while revisiting iconic locations such as Bodega Bay Inn.
Huh.
So, yeah. Now, this was originally just supposed to be a multiplayer game. I guess they've added a single-player campaign for some reason. I don't know.
Okay.
Probably the same reason that they're making a Puppet Master video game in the first place. Just for some reason. So
it's like it would be weird if it was like Puppet Master meets Leisure Suit Larry, and it's just like you're just like walking down the street, and you're just like, hey, and then you got to like do stuff, and then kill people.
I mean, the Puppet Master.
I'm trying to figure out like what is the. I don't know. Like, what is the game going to be?
I don't know. I mean, I assume you're obviously playing as the puppets, but I mean, then running around trying to kill other players who are also puppets, or is it one of those where some players are going to be humans and some players are going to be the puppets?
It's just an Among Us ripoff. It's like, who's
probably
the master? Yeah. Hey, there's a cat.
It's another cat.
So, it's another cat. So, anyway, what else we got for today?
That's all I got as far as news.
That is it? All right. Well, that's it for Movie News. Well, like we do every week, we are going to get into this week's film. This is a full spoiler review. We, this week, are going to be talking about the Shudder exclusive Deadstream. Like I said, it's only available on Shudder. So if you guys don't have Shudder, make sure you guys subscribe to Shudder. This is not sponsored by Shudder, but Shudder. Hey, you follow me on every form of social media. Might as well, collaborate.
Yeah. So not officially sponsored, but I will say, if you like having a platform of just horror movies, really, go check out Shudder. One, just because it's a great service, and two, it's sounding like they could probably use the boost.
Yeah.
So we do not want our dedicated horror service to go away. So
not to belittle the Screambox or anything.
Oh, of course not.
From our friends, but you know what? Subscribe to all of them.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the two services work well together. I mean, I'm subscribed to both.
Oh yeah.
And Screambox, I think, kind of caters to a different style of thing. So
Of
So, yeah.
course. Of course. Anyway, this is a full spoiler review. So if you've not watched the film, make sure you guys check it out first. If not, get ready for story time.
That's right.
So
story time.
Yeah. I was going to go a little more subtle, but that's cool.
Okay.
Whatever. We'll have chimes when you have to turn the page. It's like, turn the page.
Yeah.
You know. Oh man, we are dating ourselves.
I know, right?
Oh my word! I dated myself once. It was awkward.
Please turn it over to side B.
Yeah,
to continue the story.
Oh my word! Oh, I remember those. And then
I did.
You got to hit. Hey, you remember the rewind button? That's not a thing anymore. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll be talking about Deadstream. This is a film basically poking fun at YouTubers and the culture, if you will. Is written and directed by husband and wife duo Joseph and Vanessa Winter. They also just recently worked on VHS 99 as well.
I have not seen any of those.
I haven't either. I just, it's one of those series that I just haven't jumped into yet.
Yeah, same.
I don't know. VHS 99, there's a lot of people talking about it. There's a lot of these people that we've done films for recently or that we've covered. They all had connections with VHS 99. Maybe we should jump on board and maybe watch it or something. Anyway, let's see. It also stars Joseph Winter. He plays Sean Ruddy. Sean Ruddy is the YouTube star who is the self-proclaimed world's biggest wuss, as he calls himself. Yeah. He has a YouTube show called and they have like graphics and and he does like challenges for YouTube and all this sort of stuff, where it's like baby Moses in a basket, thing. And it's basically like fear challenges. One is like taunting the cops, and another one was I'm trying to think of some of the getting smuggled across the border. And so there's all these different things. He says that they're basically
he's one of those typical YouTubers who does really stupid things for views. Mm-hmm. I mean,
not like us.
No,
we talk.
That's right.
Much more.
You decide whether or not it's stupid, but
and from the views, no. Anyway, he has done something recently that has gotten him demonetized.
Yeah.
His sponsors have pulled out, and they are just now getting back to saying, "Okay, you've apologized publicly."
Yeah, he had one of those classic YouTuber apology videos.
I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah,
This is basically 6 months after all that happens, is what he says. This is 6 months later. He's remonetized. He's back at it.
Yeah, and the energy drink company, which I forgot their name, has now decided to sponsor him once again. So this is his first live stream back.
Yeah.
So he has decided that for his first live stream, he's afraid of ghosts. So he's going to spend the night in a haunted house.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the setup that they go through in the whole first few minutes of this thing, which I was telling Shane when I was watching this. I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to take notes. Yeah. If you guys have watched a YouTube video, it's like, it's hard to pinpoint little things sometimes that just anyway, eventually it gets to the point where we can take some notes, but
I don't want to give it away, but he says something here that cracked me up when he talks about how he's not a fan of horror. He doesn't watch horror movies.
Yep.
So
he was raised in a very religious house.
Yeah.
He says.
And, Yeah, but the thing he says about horror movies, I laughed so hard. Just go watch this movie. It's worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's Shane's review, so we might as well.
It's worth it. Worth it for this line. I'm saying.
Okay. So anyway, he shows up. Well, I'm not going to spoil it yet. So he says about the haunted house, and then it goes to a screen, basically like status, loading, live screen, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you've ever dealt on this side of streaming, you are familiar with this setup page, basically, where it's almost Twitch like.
Yeah. He just couldn't say Twitch. I mean,
he also couldn't say YouTube, so it's like livid.
Yeah.
So LIV, like live, and then video,
live
VID.
Yeah.
So livid. I was like, that's actually a pretty good idea.
That's pretty funny. Yeah,
it's a good name. Anyway, so it shows that thing, and then we see where it's the live event coming up, and it counts down, and then you see this black screen, and it says on such and such date, a YouTuber went missing after a live stream, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And then you kind of see it pull back, and you see that Sean's actually standing there holding a merch shirt that he had printed. And he's like, go buy the merch, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh my God. That to me was one of the funniest parts.
Oh yeah. That was fantastic. And I mean, because it's the classic line you see, like, I think it probably started with Blair Witch, right? Where, this was found footage, you know, where it was discovered a year later or something like that. Yeah. So that's what you see. And then, he pulls it back and it's just a shirt. And that was pretty good.
I was like, that's pretty funny. So anyway, he's going into all the different things that he's done to set up. If you've ever watched like ghost shows and stuff like that, or like Ghost Hunter, Ghost Adventures stuff, or just YouTubers in general, it's a lot of just talking. Like, this is what we did. This is how we set it up. Blah blah blah. So we find out.
I feel like it's important to note this guy is one of those extremely obnoxious YouTubers.
Yes.
Who has over-the-top reactions to everything, reacts in ways that humans don't react to things unless you are specifically trying to get views, So,
and what's crazy now, and this is going to go off on a soapbox tangent for a second. We should have a segment where it's just like, this is soapbox. But anyway, there's like graphic that comes up. So, because usually like every week I have something that I'm just like, okay, so this is what bothers me with it. This is why I'm old. So it's like that 60-minute segment where it's like, who was that guy, Andy Rooney or something? He's like, so this is why the blah blah blah, everybody's dumb. Have you noticed, and I'm going to use the word kids because I'm old, that since YouTube has become this cultural monolith, basically, for entertainment for this next generation, Generation Z or Alpha, or, all these generations, that more and more youth or younger kids, this is the way that they act now because they see that it's normal.
Yeah. Well, they think it's normal. Yeah.
Watch this film, people. You get to see our future lived out.
Yeah.
So anyway,
he perfectly nails the obnoxious YouTuber. It's uncanny. I would go so far as to say that, like, I thought, I'm not going to name them, obviously, because we don't need the hate pouring in on the channel, but I was thinking of a couple.
Good press.
Yeah, I could think of a couple very specific examples of who this guy was imitating.
My kid watches them. Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah,
unless they're not the ones that you're thinking of, but pretty much any of them. So anyway, so he's dismantled his car. He's taken out like the spark plugs and all this.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm going to make sure I can't get out of here. I can't leave. Yeah. I'm so afraid, but I gotta do this. I gotta, this is for the people, for you fans type thing, and all this.
Takes the spark plugs and chucks them into the forest.
Yeah. He just throws them, and he's like, I've done a lot of stupid things, but never done them, been alone when I've done them, type thing, And then we hear the storm rolling in, which really doesn't play a big part into anything, but it just kind of sets up everything. And then he's setting up the infrared cameras, which only only turn on if there's movement. So that kind of plays a part a little bit later. But anyway, he's setting up cameras and he's dialing it, he's like setting it up on his iPad. And so he's carrying that around with him. He's got like a POV camera, hooked to himself. One where you can see what he's seeing. Yeah. And so anyway, he's got them all on his iPad so he can check between them. Anyway, this is the point where he's talking about going into the house. He says that we've got access to the most haunted house in America that we could get access to for such a low budget or something. It's just,
he says it's the most haunted, it's the most famously haunted or something, but not too famous for me to film in or something like that.
Yeah. So I was like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So he breaks into the house, and I love the fact that it shows this house. It's got a piece of plywood over the door, which he just rips off.
It says keep out on it.
Yeah, keep out. Rips this thing off. And then it has all this wood that looks like it's supposed to be barricaded on the door to keep, people from getting in or out and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. But the wood is literally just on the door. It's not on the frame. It's not anywhere else.
Yeah.
You could just open the door. And I was like, that is awesome. So whoever did that in the whatever department, the department that I'm talking about. The one where they build stuff. Anyway, great job. So he goes into the house, he locks himself in with a padlock, and he drops the key to the padlock down a vent. He's like, I'm not getting out of here. I'm going to stay here all night. I'm committing to this. And then he curses and he's like, oh, no. I'm going to please don't pull your sponsorships and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, have a 3-strike system or something which there should be a 3-strike system for demonetization. And you know who I'm talking to right now. Anyway, not like it hasn't happened to me. So where was I at? So anyway, he's like, yeah, I should start now, blah, blah. Then he starts reading through the comments in the chat. Yeah. So I love this part because it's like he's never alone.
This is done to great effect.
Yeah,
by the way, it's all throughout the movie.
It's showing like the chat on the side, and like a bubble that comes, the text bubble.
Yeah, I kept having to pause when this would happen just to read through some of the comments because they scroll through pretty quickly, and it's like, yep, that's the internet. That's exactly what happened.
I go into one of those a little bit later, and I'm like, this is exactly the internet being themselves. Yeah. So anyway, he's walking through the house. He ends up first off in this living room area with a fireplace and whatnot. And he goes into a kitchen. He's like, oh, this is, what was the lady's name?
Mildred was the...
Mildred, that's right. This is Mildred's kitchen. He's telling the history of the home, how Mildred was a lonely Mormon woman who her father built the house for because he felt sorry for her because
something like it. Her dad was like an important like Mormon, I don't know, businessman or something, and he had this daughter Mildred that the townsfolk didn't like.
Yeah,
they didn't trust her basically because she was odd duck Mildred and her weird poems is what the townsfolk said.
She would write poetry all the time, and if you've grown up in a religious household, poetry that's of the devil. Just ask King David, in all of the Psalms. Anyway, which I don't know. Poetry was a weird one for me growing up. But that's for another podcast. Anyway, Yeah. I think it had to do with the rhyming. So he sees like a cleaver on the wall. He walks into the kitchen. He's like, this is crazy Mildred's kitchen, you know, and all this. And sees the cleaver and he's like, ooh, that's scary, you know, hacking people up and all this. And then he says, okay, so here's one of the hot spots, and it's the master bedroom. Okay. And he's like, he goes in there and he sets up another camera in the corner and he goes, all right, so this is where the corner man has been seen. And you're like, what's the corner man? And it's literally an apparition or a ghost that people have seen in the corner. I was like,
well done.
It's original. The corner man. The corner man has been heard to just repeat the words, the pond water is still. The pond water is still, according to EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomenon, known in the ghost world as. So quick side note, I'm gonna go off on slight tangents on this. So my brother-in-law, he works at one of those big box lumber stores and everything. He had somebody come in the other day asking if they had an EMF reader there at the at this store, and he's like, we have a lot of things to look for electrical in walls and stuff. And she goes, can you use it like do you have to put it up against the wall and all that? And he's like, what are you looking for? And she's like, oh, some electrical stuff.
Sure.
And they're looking for it and everything, and finally he goes, you're not looking for electrical stuff, are you? And she goes, no. And he goes, are you trying to look for ghosts? She goes, yes. I want to walk. I kid you not. She said, I'm trying to find my brother. So she wanted to walk outside and hold it to the trees and find her brother. Anyway.
Well, that's our real hot horror story for the week. Awesome.
Yeah, nice. So anyway, while he's down there, he's telling about the corner man and everything, and we hear this loud thump come from upstairs. So instead of going and checking it out immediately, he goes back to his comment section, back to the chat. Hey, chat, what do you guys think it is? And they're like, you should go check it out. And he's like, I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. You know, they're like, you said that if anything was scary, that you would go check it out. That was part of the contract, basically, with the promoter, not the promoters, but the
energy drink company, I'm guessing.
Thank you. Yeah. So
the sponsor.
The sponsor. Thank you. There's the word. So going back to hitting the rewind and flipping the tape over, he pulls out a cassette player, a tape recorder, and he hits play on it, and it has creepy music.
Yeah, he brought his own mood music.
So it's like, and he's walking up the stairs telling the story of Mildred and how she was so lonely and blah, 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 and she hung herself at the top of the stairs in this home while this music's playing. He goes up to the stairs. He opens up this room. He goes, this is another one of the haunted hotspots. He goes, this is the nursery. And he opens it up, and you look in there and you see like a little bed and a crib and little chairs and stuff. And he's like, oh my God, this is so creepy. He goes, what if like I saw like Haley Joel Osment sitting in that chair over there?
Yeah.
But as an adult, that would be creepier.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's worse.
Well, that to me was such a great line. I loved that one. So then he plays a video. He's like, oh, if you don't believe me about this, he goes, this was featured on Ghost Hunters, which I was like, okay, Ghost Hunters is a real show. This was not on Ghost Hunters. So anyway, because it wasn't even the same people from it, but he did say,
is that what they called it? He called it in the movie.
Called it Ghost Hunters.
Okay,
which I was like, okay, that's kind of treading some interesting ground right there.
I wonder if that's just generic enough of a term,
maybe,
that he can get away with it. I don't know.
But anyway, so he plays this clip from a ghost hunting team, and they have this little girl with them, one of the guy's daughters, and he's like, okay, go into the room and see, if the kids will play with you type thing. And she goes to open up the door, like send a kid in, with the spirits or whatever. And she goes, oh, I can't go in there. And he goes, why not? And she goes, because they said it's not my room. And he goes, who did? And she's like, them in there.
Yeah,
and
she points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Sean. He's like, ooh scary.
Creepy.
Yeah. So then he goes into the bathroom and he talks about how...
Well, wait a minute. First he's like, no, I do not condone bringing kids on ghost hunts. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. Because and his big thing is, I would not stoop that low.
Yeah.
He's like, clearly he has stooped very low in his career.
He says, I would never use kids. For that. And he goes, in fact, I would never use kids for any form of entertainment or something like that. He goes, there's some lows that even I wouldn't stoop to type thing. It's like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But he goes into the bathroom there. It's got this nasty bathtub that's like mostly full of like black water.
Yes.
Gross. And he's like, this is where the last death in 1955 happened, right here in this bathtub. And he talks about that. And mind you, Shane and I are going to be tag teaming a lot on this because it moves so fast that it's hard to. Oh yeah. I had a hard time with some of these notes, but he sets up a camera in the bathroom, names it bathroom camera and everything. And he's like, there's been EVPs from in here. He's like, listen. And it shows him and it's like, mama. Yeah. You hear like, mama. And there's like pond water. Just over and over and over.
And the chat, I love this part because the chat argues with him. He's and they're like, it doesn't say pond water. It's not saying pond water. He's like, what are you talking about? It's so clear. Okay, fine. Maybe it's not pond water. Maybe it's, and I don't know. He gives something else,
some random word or something. Yeah, but once again, the chat comes in clutch on that.
Yeah.
So he starts playing the creepy music again and talking about Mildred and going more into her story. And then he sets up a camera in the hallway pointing back towards where she hung herself. So then he says, now this is the only room where there hasn't been any sort of, paranormal activity. And he just walks in like, no big deal. Yeah. He's like, whoo, I feel safe now. And he's like, and then he goes, oh, what's that? He goes, it's a closet. And he freaks out and he goes, ghosts love closets. And he runs over to it and he whips it open and there's clothes in there. And he's like looking around for ghosts. And then he sees like this drawing on the wall. It's very occult looking. Yeah. It's got the hand and all that sort of, you've seen this and I'm probably going to put it up on the screen now. But anyway, it's his hand symbol and all this sort of stuff. He sees that and he goes, oh, that's creepy. That's scary. So he takes it and like, does he tear it or does he like wad it up?
No, it's like on this, it's painted on this piece of wood. That's like really thin piece of wood that's like hanging on something, and he just chucks it on the floor.
Okay.
We also got, before he came into the room though, he kind of gave more of Mildred's backstory in that she was ostracized. She was a pariah, right? But this publisher had come around and they fell in love, and we find out at this point that they had been writing love letters to each other for 2 years. Yep. Right. So a little bit more trickling in the information of this Mildred ghost that supposedly haunts this.
Yes.
But yeah, he sees the rune, whatever thing on the wall, and he just throws it on the floor.
Yeah. Chucks it. So, he's like, this is creepy,
Yeah.
And he says something about like his religious background again. And throws it. Yeah. And his mom has sent, and I forgot to mention this earlier, his mom has sent him a care package basically with holy water, a cross,
Yeah, holy water across. It's got like some sort of dagger or something.
Yeah, like a little, like a knife of some sort, like a silver dagger or something, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah. Garlic and a
garlic.
clove of garlic.
Clove of garlic. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and the sandwich. Did you pause the video and read the sandwich?
No, I didn't. What did it say?
She left a note with the sandwich. It said something like, "Sean, you're a douchebag, but I love you anyway," or something like that.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So he's got this safe room. He's like, we're gonna call this basically like his base camp type thing. Yeah. So he's setting up all of his. He's like moving things out of the way, he's setting up his laptop and lights and all this sort of stuff. So this room is well lit, and he can have a safe space basically. Then the comments are like, did you bring the wheel of stupid things? So supposedly he has like this wheel that he has on some of his shows where he spins it and it says stupid stuff that he's supposed to do. He's like, he goes, yeah, in fact, I did bring it. And he looks down into his bag. Well, while he's looking down to his bag, he doesn't see that the camera from the master bedroom downstairs, the motion activation has gone off, and we see a clip of that bedroom.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything move, but that could have just been.
I didn't either, but I did note it because I thought it was. I thought it was well placed because earlier in the movie, it was just kind of a throwaway line with him saying that it was motion activated.
Yeah.
Right. So if you paid attention to that, and then you just get this sudden clip where the feed cuts over, but nothing is ever said about it. Like he doesn't mention it, right?
Yep.
But so then it's like, oh, the camera must have caught something. That's cool.
And if you didn't catch that line earlier, you're dumb. YouTube. This is for the views. So I should just do that like the whole rest of the thing. It'd be one of those annoying YouTubers. So the wheel lands on Seance, and he's like, no, guys, I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you have to, it's the wheel, blah, 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 and all this. And so he's like, fine, but I'll choose which room I do it in. So he decides to go back to the nursery, and he goes in there and he's looking around. He looks underneath the bed, and he finds this old clown doll thing. Kind of cute. It's not super creepy.
But it's not a creepy doll.
It's like the 1930s type doll and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, oh, this is awesome. What a great find and everything. And he's like, hey, chat, look up to see how much this is going for on eBay.
Yeah.
He's obviously going to take it, and then he like kneels down in front of this chair. He sets up the clown in the chair, and he starts doing like this weird rhyming seance type thing. It's not really like a seance you would normally think of, but it's more like he's doing like this nursery rhyme type thing, and I love the fact that every time he's calling on the spirits, he's always calling for the kids. Or the young ones, because he doesn't want to deal with like the creepy old ones. Yeah. So he's like, hey, blah,
he's not taking it seriously, right? Because like you said, he's doing these weird chants, and then he's like, Red Rover, send dead babies right over.
While he's hearing like this creaking sound, all this, and then all of a sudden there's a boom, loud bang on the roof of the home, and he like freaks out.
Yeah.
And he runs out of that room and gets into the safe room, and he's like talking to the chat and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, ooh, I'm safe now. He's in the safe room. Like nothing can get him. And he's looking all around and moving things and like dumping stuff out of like this metal bucket. And then next thing you see, he's taking a piss in the bucket for like 30 seconds to a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like, and I'm like, so obviously this guy used to being in front of the camera, used to like has no dignity whatsoever, and he just doesn't care. He's like, you know what, these are my fans, these are my people, they love me no matter, I'm just gonna do whatever I do. So
it's important to note though, because it does come up later, he actually sets up a bucket and pisses into the bucket.
That's what I just said.
Oh, did you? Oh, I heard it was corner. Okay.
I said he found a bucket and started.
Okay. I didn't hear it.
I was like, yeah, he dumped out the stuff out of the metal bucket and put
Oh,
it down
okay.
and started
I am half asleep, dude.
Jeez.
Okay. Yeah.
Jeez. So anyway, this is for you, YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. So all of a sudden we start seeing, yes.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
We see trending in the comments, Corner Man, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. And he's like, what are you talking about, Corner Man? And then he sees the photos. People are putting up like screen captures of, like the video footage from when it cuts over, when it was cutting over to other video feeds and stuff. And he's like, I know how to use Photoshop. He's like, that's not real. And so he goes back to the playback through his video footage, and he sees like this apparition, this ghost slender man type looking thing walk past the camera over kind of by the nursery area where he was at, and he freaks out and runs and hides under a pile of blankets in the closet. And I was like, this is great. And he's like, I can't do this anymore. This is real.
Yeah. And this is where his viewers really start taunting him about, because they had started doing it earlier, but this is where they really start taunting him about losing his sponsors.
Yeah, he's going to lose his sponsors. Yeah. I'm falling asleep.
Yeah.
You're going to lose me too. And supposedly, he is one of the biggest YouTubers out there.
Yeah.
Or live vidders or livids or whatever out there.
Yeah.
So he's kind of making his comeback. This is like, we talked about the comeback earlier, but to the extent of how big he actually is. I mean, he's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did this when I said he's huge, but that would have made no sense. He goes out then to investigate, and he starts hearing noises. He's out in the hallway at this point. He's hearing these weird noises, and then he hears like this giggle come from one room, and then he hears running, and then he hears laughter, and he's like, no, and he runs back into the safe room and closes the door, and then you hear like noises at the door coming, and he's like freaking out. He's scooting back, and he's like, no.
And at this point too, when he runs in, he accidentally steps on that piece of wood with the painting on it that was in the closet. He had chucked onto the floor. Yeah. He accidentally steps on it, and he looks down, and then he just stomps it to bits. Right? Because before he had just thrown it on the floor. Now he actually crushes it.
Now he breaks it. Okay. So when I was asking earlier about him destroying that thing, I didn't remember it being destroyed at that point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And nor did I remember it at this point, because it's like, this comes up later.
Yeah.
This is why we are talking about it now, obviously. But like I said, so much happens in this movie that if you're trying to keep quick.
But I feel like, and obviously he doesn't put this together, but the first time I saw that, when he first saw it and chucked it out of the closet, I'm like, oh, well, he's screwed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like, come on, dude. You just said that this is the only room with no activity, and then you see some weird shape thing hanging that was clearly painted on. It's like, come on.
The door bursts open, and it's a girl.
Yep.
And she is obsessed with Sean. Yeah. She's one of his biggest fans. And she has found him and located him because he made it obvious where he was at.
Yeah.
According to supposedly. This fan, her name is Chrissy. She's played by Melanie Stone. She's done a bunch of Hallmark movies. She did the film VHS 99, which we talked about. Yeah. And she has done some other stuff. Melanie, if you're listening to this, please don't hate me because you have a long list of films and I'm not going to list them all. But anyway, Hallmark VHS 99. It's for you, YouTube. So he's like, I'm gonna leave. I can't do this. I'm gonna leave, and he's freaking out. She's like, no, you've got to stay. You've got to stay. You need to stay for the views. Yeah. At this point, she's really pushing him that this following is really, really, important. He needs to keep getting his following going. And she's like, you'll disappoint me. I'm your biggest fan, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And she's like, well, I want to stay.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I was going to do this alone. You can't stay. She's like, but I want to stay. I want to stay. And people in the chat are like, hey, she's hot. Keep her. Yeah, let's the viewers are going up.
Yeah.
And
up
that's more what, that she's on there.
Because he's ready to leave. And she's like, have you looked at your view count? You've got record views.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Fairly good numbers at this point. He was like at 3.9 million or something like that. I mean, it was high ish. Because I'm like, I've seen YouTubers with higher numbers, but whatever. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, but for live
writer of this film.
For a live video, that's pretty good. Right? I mean,
yeah.
So
yeah. He does a poll. He's like, I'm going to do a poll. What do you guys think? Should she stay? Should she go? And of course it ought to, yes to stay and all this sort of stuff. So she's like, yes. So he gives her a camera and all the names at Chrissy camera and all this. And, so he's like, well, what should we do? And she's like, well, you saw, I guess it was downstairs where that corner man was walking. Or she says something about corner man, that's his bedroom is downstairs. Let's go down there.
Oh,
check it out.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, fine. And all the people are like, yeah, you should go with Chrissy and blah, blah, blah. And you're a wuss and all this. So, so they go down to the master bedroom. And as they're getting ready to go in there, Chrissy's gone.
Yeah.
She's nowhere to be found.
He's got her walking behind him and walking backward.
Yeah.
So that he can look at his tablet, right? And he can see her camera feed.
Yeah.
Right. And then right when he gets to the door, he looks at it and it's gone.
Yeah. She's got his 6, if you will.
Yeah.
If you're a call of dude bros, you know that someone's got your 6. So anyway, they're walking back to back. She disappears. He doesn't know where she's at. He's like, where is she? Where is she? And then she comes out of like one of the doorways by the kitchen. She's like, just playing with you. And he's like, don't ever do that again. Blah, blah. We're going to stay together no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
So they go into the master bedroom and then Chrissy screams once they're, and she hears something from inside the closet. So he goes to check it out. He's like, I'm good with closets. And so he's like looking around and he sees this hole and he's like, oh, I bet you it's like mice or something. And you find out that it's this panel. It's like sheetrock panel, which sheetrock back in those days when they were building. But anyway, that's another thing. Is it sad that I go into contracting? So I've done contracting and I've done construction for so long in my life that I look at little things like this and I'm like, that wouldn't be in this style of home.
Yeah. That's just your thing, dude. It's like when lawyers can't watch legal dramas or doctors can't watch medical dramas.
Yeah.
Your thing is just, no, I've done this sort of thing. And
that wouldn't hold up.
Yeah.
So anyway, they pull this sheetrock panel away from this thing. And there's this access way, like this tunnel, but it's a stairwell down to a cellar. And he's like, we should go check it out. He says at this point, we should go check it out, which is odd because he's been so afraid to check anything else out, but they're going to go down there. So they go down to the cellar and there's like all these trinkets and things down in there. And they find this old trunk.
Yeah.
They proceed to open up the trunk and they find some like clothing in there, very not dusty, fairly modern. Anyway, they open up and there's Mildred's journal. They find her journal in there, he starts looking through it. He's like, this must be her journal. And then he sees it and he's like, oh, it's just a bunch of poems.
Yeah.
And he's disappointed by that. He's like, oh, it's a bunch of poems.
Chrissy also puts, you don't, I didn't see her grab it out of the chest, but like she grabs a necklace or something.
Mm-hmm. Starts putting it on.
Yeah, she puts a necklace on, which seems so innocuous,
Yep.
But there's a lot of weird things that she does.
I mean, he even takes like this little box thing that he finds, and he stuffs it. He's like, this looks valuable, type thing. And he stuffs it into his bag or wherever, into a pocket. And so you can tell that it's like, oh, we found stuff. We're going to keep it. It doesn't seem out of place, whatever. You're going to have to bring up the necklace later because I can't remember what that plays into. So anyway.
Oh, no, I don't think the necklace comes up again. It's just that like,
because I was
oh, no.
Oh,
she just
like,
he, like you said, he grabs the box but like she just like, oh, put the necklace right on. It's like,
wow. She found it in there. She just
y'all are just like grabbing stuff. Okay.
yeah. They were just looting whatever they could find.
Yeah.
So then Sean proceeds to look over and he sees a dead dog or cat or some sort of mummified animal.
It's very mummified. So.
And he's like, we got to get out of here. And they take off running back up the stairs.
Yeah.
So the chat at this point is like, it's time, you should do, or no, she says, well, why don't we do another Wheel of Stupid Things?
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, all right, fine. So he pulls it out because the chat's like, yeah, Dad, do it. And so he spins the thing and it lands in between two items. And one of them is a spirit board, or known as a Ouija board.
Ouija board. And the other one is EVP session, I think.
Yeah. So she's like, well, no, you need to do both.
Yeah, because he's going to spin again.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, no, they want you, the spirit. Does she say like the spirits want you, or you're supposed to do both or something?
Yeah, something like that. So they start, they get down there. He has the recorder and all this, and they put one hand onto the journal, and the other hand onto the planchette, to move around the Ouija board, and which by the way, at the top of the Ouija board, I thought that this was kind of interesting, and I forgot the exact wordage right now, and I'm not going to chant it in case it does bring anything at home. But at the top of it is the chant from The Evil Dead.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, that's kind of funny.
And she is like, she seems to indicate that like she's done this before, and so she knows, how to do this sort of thing. Yeah. And she says that he needs to read some of the poems out loud, and he's like, no, they're boring.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're not boring. She gets like super mad about it.
Yeah. And so they start doing, he doesn't quite know what to do. And she's like, well, let's do this chant. She goes, I've got this chant that we can do. And he's like, I don't like to say things that I don't understand or I don't know what they mean. And she's like, basically, I learned this. It's like, it has to do with like opening up and saying like, hey, it's okay to, we're here in peace to talk and all this sort of stuff. It's very, very like, oh, okay, fine. We'll go along with it. So she says something, he repeats it. She says, he repeats it, and blah, blah, blah. And then you hear the boom, this loud bang in the bathroom upstairs.
And the feed cuts to the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah. Feed cuts to the bathroom. And, she's like, what was that? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, we should go check it out. You said that you would go and check. And chat's like, yeah, go, blah, blah. She has more balls than you type thing and all that.
Yeah.
And he's like, fine. How about you go up and I'll watch the feed?
Yeah.
And I'll let you know if anything happens. And so she's like, fine. So she
says, don't worry, Sean. I have a feeling that soon you won't be afraid anymore.
Yes.
At this point, it's like, dude, you need to get out of here.
Yeah, you need to get out quick.
Just leave her. You need to get out of here.
Yeah, because crazy stalker fan lady. And some of the people are even saying about stalker fan, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Get out.
The chat is so great.
Yeah. I mean, no offense to the cast in this, but the chat made the movie.
The chat is so well written.
Yeah, because it's so true.
It's so believable.
Yeah. So he sends Chrissy up, and then we see the planchette. We hear this noise, and you see that the planchette from the Ouija board has moved on its own and slid off the board to where Chrissy was at the one point.
Yeah.
It's where she was kneeling at. He's watching for her, and the camera feed goes out. Her camera feed.
Her camera feed, yeah.
And then he starts hearing weird noises, and he's like, forget it, and he bails on that room. He's like, I gotta get out of here. So he bails, and he goes up, and he's looking for Chrissy again. And she's, once again, gone. He can't find her. And he's checked the bathroom, and he's looking all around, and then she's like, boo, type thing, and she jumps out of the shadows. And he's like, you gotta stop doing that. And he's like, he's mad at her at this point.
Yeah.
He's like,
he finally goes off on her.
He's like, I don't know why you're here.
Yeah. He finally asks a question that I had asked myself early on when she first showed up.
Go ahead, ask it. It's right there.
How did she get in here?
Yeah, there it is.
He padlocked the door.
Yep.
But he finally asks her, and she's like, I climbed in through a window. All the windows are boarded up, except for, as they've established, there's one in the... Yeah, in the upstairs that's not boarded. Because he even's like, why isn't this window boarded up? Oh, is it the nursery? Okay.
I believe it's in the nursery, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not boarded up. The window is actually open. The curtains are... Because we find this out later about it being open. So, anyway, she's like, well, I climbed in through the window and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, where do you go when you disappear? And she's basically like, Sean, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. And finally, they get into this heated... back and forth. She finally just lurches towards him and bites him on the neck, and you're just like, whoa, okay. And she just laughs on.
He had said that he wants to exercise the children, and she's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And then he's like, what, why? And that's when she
latches on. So while she's latched on, he's like reaching, like sliding his hand across the wall. He's like, trying to get her off. And he grabs an old piece of wood that was, like splintered off in the wall. And I'm like, this is actually very accurate. So he rips a piece of it off. I was like, it's brittle. It would do that.
Yeah. And then Chris was like, finally, they got something right with construction.
Finally, the construction stuff's right. And he stabs her in the neck, like right through the neck with this shard of wood. And she falls to the floor dead. And you're like, at this point, she's bleeding out on the floor. Yeah. And you're like, oh, crap, there's blood.
Yeah.
He just stabbed her. It's all on film.
Yeah. And he's freaking out too.
And the fact that there's blood, that's the thing that got me. It was like, there's blood, So, what is going on? So he's like, oh my God, I killed somebody. He goes, it was in self-defense type thing. And he's like, I need help. I need the cops. I'll turn myself in. I don't care. Just get the cops here. I need them here, blah, blah. And he's like, chat, call the cops on me type thing. And so he gets up and he's going to go check on her again. And he looks out into the hallway and her body's not there.
Yeah.
The pool of blood is there.
Yeah, the pool of blood and a blood trail to one of the doors.
But she's gone.
Yeah.
So he starts looking for her, like, Chrissy, where are you? I have a first aid kit type thing, I got some Band-Aids type thing. And once again, we hear that boom, that loud thump on the roof. Just shake the house type thing. And we see... on the camera, Mildred's body hanging in the corner where she was hung.
Yeah.
But and he's run back into the safe room at this point, right? I believe so.
I don't remember.
He's run back in, and we see it. We see the body hanging on the camera. I don't know if he's seen it at this point.
Oh yeah, I think so, because it's later that
that we see
get the shot. Yeah.
In the chat, they're like, "Oh, check out the video of the kid with the Hamza symbol," and you know the chat's. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And they bring up this link and it's this kid who had left a comment, but like a video chat comment.
Yeah.
So he clicks on it, very like Bill Nye the Science Guy, where it's like, whoop, and it's like, hey, Sean, you know, such and such. Wanted to let you know, basically that hand symbol that we had seen earlier that Sean had broken, thrown off the wall, or so is a symbol called the Hamza symbol, and it's used to ward off evil. It's used in a bunch of different religions. But it's used to ward off evil spirits. And he goes, it was working until you destroyed it.
Yeah.
And so the kid's explaining this to him, and he's like, oh my God, I unleashed Mildred, you know, after he's realized that he broke it, you know. He's like, I unleashed her. And during all of this self-actualization and how much he's like really screwed himself over and all that sort of stuff, this is where the comments to me got ridiculous, because they're trickling through, and one person's like, it's my birthday today, Sean. Give me a shout out. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is so accurate. Like, people so out of touch with what's going on. It's like, hey, Sean, can you, I added you on such and such. Can you accept my friend request? And
I didn't see that. I do think it was funny, because the kid recording the video tells him, about this. Oh, you destroyed it. It was protecting you. And then he goes on. He's like, "Oh, I just wanted to say I'm a big fan, and thank you so much, and yada yada yada." Yeah. It just keeps going on about it.
Yeah, and he's finally just.
Sean just shuts it off.
Yep. So he sees Mildred hanging in the hallway.
The feed. He sees her on the feed.
The live feed. That's right.
Yeah.
On the camera. And he's like, I need to get out of here. I have to get out of here. But he goes, but she's in the way. And the chat's like, you need to get out. You need to find a way out, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I guess I can see if I can try to squeeze past her.
Yeah.
So, because in order to get to the stairwell to go downstairs, he has to go between her body and the railing or the wall to get past her. He looks out into the hallway. You don't see any Mildred hanging there, but he looks back on the video feed, and there she is.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't see her, you see her. You don't see her, you see her, And so he's like scooting by, just looking at his camera feed, trying to get past her, but he can't see her IRL, This is for you, YouTube. So that's funny. I actually wrote, can't see her IRL in my notes. I was like, that's funny. But so as he's squeezing by, he's looking down, and then he looks forward again, and he can see her in real life.
Yeah.
And she grabs him, and they're fighting, blah, blah, blah. And he finally grabs her and throws her down the stairs. Boom, 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 boom. She hits the ground down at the bottom. He takes off down the stairs, and he's trying to get the key from inside the vent.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while she's got him like strangling him and all this sort of stuff upstairs, when she was still hanging there on the rope and all this, she proceeds to take her finger and shove it up his nose.
Right. This is where that happened. Yeah.
So when he's down looking for the key inside of the vent, because he goes down the stairs trying to get the key out of the vent, actually just removes the vent and it's just ground. Which, yes, that did happen. Anyway, so he's looking for the key, and he sees blood start dripping down. And he's like, where's this blood coming from? And he sits up, and it's coming from his face, from his nose. and he reaches up into his nose and he pulls out a fingernail.
Yes, a long, pointy, nasty fingernail
out of his nose. And it's like, oh, that's messed up. And he reaches back down and he finds a key, but it's not the key to the padlock. It's a different key.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So he runs over. He's trying to kick out boards that are blocking windows and all this sort of. He's trying to find a way out because she's moving around now. He's trying to hide and all this. He finally hides away from her, and he looks again at his iPad, and the chat is telling him, try the key on that box. Remember the box that he had stuffed into his pocket from earlier? He uses the key and it opens that box. There's a photo in there, and he looks at the photo, and you see that Chrissy is actually Mildred.
Shocking.
Because you had to get a clearer look of this, because when she was strangling him, you didn't get enough look at her face.
Yeah.
I guess. I was like, I already had figured it out at this point, but
it was obvious from pretty much the very start, but this is where he realizes it.
Yeah.
Like, Chrissy is Mildred.
Chrissy's Mildred. And the photo. He then sees something wrapped up in like a cloth, and he unwraps it, and it's this nasty index finger with a long fingernail on it. And he's like, oh, that's gross. And he just throws it into the room.
Yeah. I forgot about that. He does, doesn't he?
Yeah. While he's sitting there and he's kind of hiding, you see that slender man ghost thing walk past the doorway.
Yeah.
At this point. He's like, I've got to get out of here. And he remembers the open window that's upstairs in the nursery. So he runs upstairs. He gets the rope that was attached to the piss bucket earlier. He gets that because he's going to lower himself down out of the window with the rope. So he goes up, starts tying the rope off to the little bed that was in there. I was like, that's not going to hold him. And you see this lump in the bed, and it's crying like a little kid or a baby. It's like this lump of some sort. And it's like, wah, wah, and he's like, and he freaks out. And then he starts getting chased by something. I don't remember what he gets chased by at this. Oh, it wasn't the kid.
Does he actually get chased? I know like the kid, basically flies out from under the sheets, and that freaks him out, and he runs.
Okay. Well, it came at him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he runs back into the safe room, gets into the closet.
Yeah.
Again, blankets over his head. The chat, once again, it says, she owns you now. And he's like, what do you mean she owns me? And they said that the chant that Chrissy had you do earlier when they were doing the Ouija board and all that, basically said that you're trapped now and your soul is hers.
Yeah.
And something
they have some professor had basically recorded a video for him, just like the kid did earlier. And she's like, I translated it. What you actually said was, I give thee my soul and forfeit my will. And then her kids are like, we've looked into the history of what happens to people who go there, and we really think that she's going to try to get you. Mildred is going to try to get you to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So
basically, they're finding out at this point that she is trapped. Is this the point where they're finding out where she's trapping the people in the home that come into there and all that?
Well, he had said, so earlier in the movie, so first of all, we didn't actually mention, we had mentioned how.
Oh no, that's later. That's later. Sorry.
we had found out
Spoiler.
how Mildred had been seeing this, had been writing back and forth to this publisher or whatever.
Yeah.
But then we find out that 2 days or something before he was going to come back for her because they were going to get married, he ends up dying mysteriously. Yeah. And so that's why she ended up hanging herself.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And I think Sean says early in the movie that she is collecting souls to have the family that she couldn't have before.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
So I knew that something was in this point, but there's another revelation that comes later. Stay tuned, YouTube.
Well,
don't go on YouTube. This gets better and better. So
worth noting too. After this professor records this video, right, to him saying that he's basically handed over his soul.
Yeah.
You can see that the chat is running again, and someone in chat says, "Chrissy can have my soul." So.
The chat.
I'm like, again, perfect. A perfect look at what it really would be like.
Because either people want a shout out, or they want to get with whoever the person is on the thing, or it's some sort of sexual comment, or hey, look at me type thing. It's just that's where humanity is now. Chris's soapbox. They're like, well, it's karma. It's karma for what you've done, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not karma. It's not karma. I apologized. I apologized for what I did and blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. And then he hears this weird noise. He's like, what's that? And he's looking around, and he's got the blanket kind of down in his lap at this point because he's pulled it off of his head while he's yelling at the chat. And he looks down, and he moves the blanket, and there's Chrissy's head right between his legs.
Yeah.
And she says something to him.
I didn't catch it.
I don't remember what it is. It's something having to do with a YouTube type thing.
Oh, I think she just shouts guilty or something like that. I think that's what she says.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Because the chat had been arguing with him. Yeah, like you said, this is karma. He's like
I was found not guilty or something like that.
Yeah, I was found not guilty. And and this is also the point where he basically admits that he only apologized because he had to.
Yeah, he had to. Yeah.
So he's like, I didn't know he was sick. We don't know what exactly he's talking about yet, but he's like, I didn't know he was sick. I apologize because I had to. And so Mildred, when he sees her, she screams guilty.
And then bites him right in the junk, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, ah! And he runs then and jumps out through the window.
Yeah.
And just lands on the ground. Okay,
the window that's on the second story.
Yeah. So anyway, he lands on the ground, and he's laying there, and you're like, oh man, he broke his leg or something. He's like, my leg. And he looks down. He goes, I don't want to look. And they're like, you need to look. The chat is ready because he's checking his chat again on the ground.
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to check. So he looks down, and it's got this big gash in his leg.
Yeah.
So they're like, you have to clean it. You have to, sanitize it, blah. So he gets out hand sanitizer, like a little thing of hand sanitizer, and some Q-tips. And he's putting the hand sanitizer on the Q-tip, and then takes it and puts it down to his leg. And he's like, ah! And he's outside screaming.
Yeah.
Cleaning the wound. And then he goes to get duct tape to wrap around his leg. Because he's talked earlier about how duct tape, you can fix 97% of things or something with duct tape. So he hears this growl while he's trying to duct tape up his leg. And he proceeds to get up and run to his vehicle. He then starts scrounging around through the woods looking for the spark plugs that he had thrown earlier, and he finds one, and he's like, oh yeah, and then he hears laughing in the brush somewhere, and he's looking around, and he keeps looking, and he finds the second one, and you hear this growl sound again, and he looks up, and Mildred's face is right there. It was Mildred, right? I just remember seeing a face.
Oh, I think this was a different.
Was it the other one? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know which one it was.
He sees this face, freaks out, runs, and falls over a horror movie, like you said.
He trips over a horror movie.
And he's like, oh no, it's going to get me. And all of a sudden you hear this police officer is like, are you okay down there, son? Type thing, And he looks up, and it's a cop. And he's like, oh man, I'm so glad you're here. And all this. And he he says, yeah, I heard, got your call. Basically something about coming out there. And he goes, yeah, he says, yeah, I don't like it when people are, what does the cop say? He's like something about like, I don't like people when they act mean to.
He says something. You really. He's like, well, I don't know what. There's a little bit of a back and forth, but then the cop says you really shouldn't hurt people, Sean.
Yeah, that's what it was. And you look at the cop, and you're like, is he real?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, or is he one of the, is he a spirit too?
Yeah.
And so Sean does the only thing he can think of at this point and kicks the cop right in the nuts.
Yeah.
Just drops the cop. And then hides in the SUV. And now at this point, you're like, okay, is the cop real? Or not? So next we see one of the greatest parts of the whole film while he's hiding in the SUV. It looked like you were getting ready to say something.
Well, because he gets into the SUV and he's looking at chat again because he's constantly looking at his chat.
Yeah.
And someone in the chat pops up a photo that Sean had shown earlier.
Yeah.
Of, I don't know if it was the original homeowner or what, but that's who the cop is.
Yeah.
It's the guy from the photo.
Also known as Corner Man.
Is it?
I think it was
I don't know.
Yeah, it was the old guy who would say like it was his bedroom. The original owner of the home. But prior to this though, while he's looking, because he's not for sure what's going on with the cop, he sets up one of the greatest inventions in the world.
Yeah.
He duct tapes a GoPro to the end of a Slim Jim.
Yeah.
And calls it Beef Cam. And he holds it out the window.
Yeah, he uses like a periscope
type thing. Yeah. And he sees like the cop like writhing on the ground. Like looks like something maybe has gotten him or whatever. But yeah, we see that the cop is he's a spirit. Yeah, he's one of the obviously he had a change of clothes. So they're like, "Oh, you should check out what Hamza lady in the comments said." This is while the chat's going on. Oh, and the So check out what the Hamza lady said. So we get another one of those, chat video things, and it's this older lady, grandmother. I believe it's the grandmother of the original Hamza kid who was talking, because he proceeds to talk throughout it, or maybe not. I don't know.
The voice talking to her sounds older to me.
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was budgetary. They're just like same kid, just off screen. Anyway, so this person says that their grandmother was the one who had originally made that Hamza.
Yeah.
So she was saying that she had made it because she was getting attacked and everything by the spirits in the home and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember. She used to live there, like she said, when she was 15 or something. I don't remember what the context was that she lived there.
Yeah. But she ended up making this thing, and she's like, as long as you're there with it, and as long as it's still intact, you'll be fine and you'll be safe in that room. And the person said, he destroyed it, Grandma. And he's like, oh, well, then he's screwed. He's like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. He's going to die.
Yeah. But she does say that he could create, basically, he could do the same whatever to the home by having a sacrifice of flesh.
Yeah.
And then he could be the main entity in the home as opposed to Mildred. So basically, Mildred had she had sold her soul to the devil, basically, but he could do the same sort of thing and take over all the entities and become the dominant whatever in the home and bind them all to him, but it would require a sacrifice of flesh. Well, see, then I don't know why I said, well, see, but anyway, so we get this banging on the vehicle at this point.
Yeah.
So he's looking around through all of his stuff, like, what can I protect myself with? And he finds a potato gun. Yeah. So obviously on one of his videos, he's made a potato gun, or a tater gun, as he called it.
Tater gun, yeah.
He loads some sort of, like, I couldn't tell if it was a bobblehead. I think it was a bobblehead into it, because he had nothing else.
It's like a bobblehead of him.
Is that what it was? Okay.
I think so.
I saw it was a bobblehead, and I couldn't figure out who it was. So he shoves it into the potato gun, and you see the cop come up to the window, and he bangs on it. He's like, "License and registration, Sean." And he's like banging on it. And then Sean's like, "Oh," and he scurries back to the other side of the SUV, and he's back up against the door. And the police officer busts through the window and grabs Sean by the neck and pulls him through the car window, pulls him out, and oh no, he doesn't pull him out. He grabs him. Sean scurries to the other side, crawls out of the thing, and the cop goes through the vehicle to get to him. He's coming down to grab at Sean, and Sean shoots a big hole through the cop with that bobblehead.
Yeah.
And the cop's like, and lands on the top of the potato gun and starts sliding down the barrel of the potato gun towards Sean. Sean's like, "Oh no, not good, not good, not good." And it's like right here in his face and all that.
Yeah.
He goes to grab the iPad to check the chat, and the iPad is shattered.
Yeah.
He's all alone at this point. He has no eyes. He has no one to talk to.
He doesn't know whether or not he's even still live streaming. Yeah.
He's like, I'm dying, chat. He goes, "Worst of all, I don't even know if I'm still streaming." Yeah. Through all of it, he's dying, but he's like, "This is the worst part. I don't know if I'm still streaming."
Yeah.
So he pulls out the journal while he's still in the SUV again, barricade himself in. He opens up the journal again, and this paper falls out. It's all folded up, and he opens it up, and it says about the holy hand of power.
Yeah.
In the journal. And basically it was like get yourself, it's like a self-help type seminar thing from back in the day type flyer. Come find out how you can, have power and influence over people by the hand of power, type thing. And you find out how she sold her soul, basically. And he finds out through everything that she was forcing the ghosts to memorize her poems. Yeah. Such as one of the poems had the line, "The pond water is still," and all this sort of. And he's like, she's been building her following. He's like, that's what this is all about. She just wants a following.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, what's the best way to ruin someone trying to build their following?" He goes, "A copyright strike."
Yeah.
So
he wants to copyright strike the ghost.
So he decides he's going to he's going to fight. He's not going down without a fight at this point.
Yeah.
But he knows how to take her down, he thinks now. So he flips his cassette tape around, puts it back in, hits play, and now we've got 80s synth music, a la Terrifier 2. And he's like, "Let's demonetize this bitch." And he whips open the car door, goes up and busts the door open into the house, rolls out his tools that his mother had sent with him. He makes a spear with that knife, and and he takes the garlic and puts it on the tip.
On the end of the spear. Yeah.
And earlier, when we were talking about him cursing and all that sort of stuff, really early in the thing, because every time, when he says, "Let's demonetize this bitch," he says, "Strike two." Or, right out, because he's talking about his strikes, that he given himself. So every time he curses, he says like strike one, strike two.
This brings up another thing I think we failed to mention. When he was first going through the house, obviously there's graffiti everywhere, so obviously people have been in here. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of used needles.
Yes.
Laying on the ground. Yeah, we didn't mention that before, but at this point,
that's where we're getting to. Yeah.
He grabs his holy water and gets some holy water into one of the needles.
Because nothing like heroin and holy water to really mess up a ghost.
Yeah.
So he gets that. He goes into the kitchen, he grabs the cleaver, and he yells out, "Hey, Mildred!" He goes, "I understand why you do what you do."
Yeah.
And you hear a door creak open. And he runs upstairs, like the door, I think, was to the master bedroom or whatever. He runs upstairs, gets into the safe room, sees his laptop. He's still streaming. Yeah. He's excited. While he was in the SUV, he was saying to the people in the chat, if they could still hear him, if they could translate the words from that paper. There was something written in Latin in it, and he needed the translation. Well, they've translated the words for him now. Chat has once again come through. So he sees that there's he hears a scream from the other room. He grabs a piece of chalk or something, and he starts writing on the floor. He starts drawing something.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, "What's he drawing?" "Well, he's drawing, blah, blah." And he starts talking to the chat. And at this point, he's now really apologizing because he's like, "This is it. I could die. I want you guys to know I really, did care about you guys, blah, blah, blah. I was a horrible person. I did horrible things, all this sort of stuff. I didn't realize that the homeless guy that I had paid to fight me, he was already sick. And, when he died and all that, and I'm just like, geez, and he's apologizing for being racist and
he apologizes not just for doing the stunts, but for actually even thinking of them in the first place.
Yeah. The fact that it was even in his head. Yeah.
But this whole thing still comes off as a little insensitive.
Yeah.
Especially, because then he's like, he as he heads out, he apologized for being racist, but he's like, you know what? In fact, this is for all the blacks and Mexicans.
Yeah, he's still a YouTuber. Okay,
he's still a YouTuber.
This is for you, YouTube. He once again hits his 80s music. It starts playing again. He's now drawn the Hamza on the floor.
Yeah,
and he's like. He says, "If I'm going out," he goes, "I'm going to give you the best cinematic ending of a live stream ever." And he duct tapes a GoPro at the end of the spear that he has made.
Yeah.
So now he's got like this makeshift spear with a GoPro at the end of it, and he names it Spear Cam.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Mildred, I'm waiting." And he's waiting in that room. And then he starts reading her poems, waiting for her, and critiquing them.
Yeah.
He's just like, "Oh, this is horrible, blah." And you hear this, from the other rooms and all this. Yeah. And he goes out and he starts looking for Mildred, and he sees this kid sitting on a bed in the nursery. And the kid's crying, and he's like, hey, it's okay. Your mother, your mother, blah, 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 and all this. And the kid turns to look at Sean, and it's got like another something growing out of it. And both of them look at Sean, and you're like, "Oh, that's creepy." And so he runs out of there, and he makes one of the most horrible comments to another YouTuber in the whole movie at this point. He says, "Oh, come on, Mildred. you're just going to keep sending your child army like some sort of low budget PewDiePie?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
So Mildred starts taunting him, blah, blah, blah. And he's out there, and the corner man starts getting him. He can't see him, but he's getting him and all this sort of
stuff. But it is showing up on the feeds, on the video feeds.
Yeah.
So just like earlier, he can't actually see the entity, but it is showing up on the feed. So
yeah. And he's got that spear cam. Yeah. So he knows where it's at, and he stabs Corner Man.
Yeah.
With this, and Corner Man's like, ooh, and he's like, I got you. And Corner Man grabs the spear out of Sean's hands and turns around and stabs Sean with the spear.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh man. Sean gets back into the safe room, closes the door once again, and then you hear knock, knock, knock at the door. And you hear this voice. It's like, Sean, help me. I'm scared. And it's Mildred. And he's like, look, listen, people, you need to, there's a whole audience of people out there. I can help you. You know, if you just stop, I can help get your poetry out there and all this. You know, there's a lot of nice people on the internet. I just want to help. And then the lights go out completely in the room. Like all the energy is drained from everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's got like his flashlight or something, and it does the thing where it flickers and then goes out.
Well, even his cams, everything goes out at this point.
Yeah, it's pitch black.
Which, like they say in the paranormal shows and all that sort of stuff, when an entity is taking all the energy, they take all the energy and they drain all the batteries.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened. So it goes pitch black, and then you hear Mildred say, "I want you to meet someone."
Yeah.
And then you see Sean sitting in that bathtub with the nasty water, and he opens up his eyes, but his eyes are all white.
Yeah.
Like someone who's gone completely blind. And he's sitting there and he's like, the pond water is still. The pond water is still. And then he gets like pushed headfirst into the tub.
Yeah.
And Mildred, you see like her arm shoving him in or something. It's like some sort of force is pushing him in. And then he finally like pulls himself out of the water and he yells, "No, Mildred, I am the influencer." And then it lets him go. And he's like, "Whoo." And his eyes are back to normal at this point. And all of a sudden this face and the whoever had died in 1955 or whatever comes up out of the water and grabs him. And he's like, "Ah!" And he grabs his syringe, his meth thing.
His holy water filled needle.
Stabs the whatever dead thing with the holy water. And he's like, "Yeah, I've heard something, blah, blah, but holy water will
he says if there's one thing horror movies have taught me, it's that
holy water will really and then he goes to say F thing, F a ghost up. But when he's going to say, he goes, "Well, really the head of the thing explodes and just crap all over Sean's face." And he's just like, Sean cleans himself off. He goes back in and we see the planchette moving down the hallway from the Ouija board.
Is that what that was? Okay. I heard the chittering.
Yeah.
Okay.
He sees it moving on the cam. Mildred jumps onto him in the hallway because he's going after her and the planchette.
Yeah. She
takes his head, starts hitting it against the floor and all this. And she's like, "Smash that like button, Sean." I'm like, that's a great line. And he ends up like knocking her out. Somehow he gets her, knocks her out. And then he takes one of the GoPros and puts it on her head.
Yeah.
So like she's wearing it again. He then grabs she gets up he grabs the hatchet, and oh no, he bashes. She bashes his head. He grabs the hatchet and puts it right into her head, and she basically. Then he puts the camera onto her head.
Yeah.
She gets up. You see it from her perspective. She walks into the safe room, and she sees Sean's legs laying back behind the desk.
Before she gets into the room,
yeah,
she picks up his cassette player and turns on some mood music.
That's right. Not 80s at this point. It's the creepy music again.
Yeah.
She turns it on. She sees his legs laying there. It's a hey boy moment. And because when she comes around the corner, it's just his pants that's been stuffed with something to look like he's laying there. He comes out of nowhere, like goes after her, knocks her to the floor, drags her into the Hamza thing after he's already knocked her out, and he duct tapes her hands to the floor.
Yeah.
Very horribly, and her mouth. Then he starts doing the Hamza chant, basically the thing that was translated from the chat. And she gets up, and he's still going like, I don't understand why this isn't working. Yeah. And she pulls her hands up, and she gets up, and she takes the duct tape off and punches him. Yeah. Gets him down onto the ground, grabs the metal bucket that he had pissed in earlier, and starts waterboarding him with a towel over his face, waterboarding him with his own urine. Okay.
A lot of it, too.
Oh, a ton.
Like, good grief, man. How much did you go?
Well, remember, he was there for like 30 to a minute, man. Yeah. So he starts crawling out of there, escaping and all this sort of stuff. And he rolls down the stairs. He's like, I don't understand. I said the words. She's crawling after him too, because she can't walk at this point either. They're both crawling. And she's like, make sure to like and subscribe. You hear her from the background. And he finds that dried up finger. He sees it on the ground next to him. And then he goes, oh, a sacrifice of flesh. And it dawns on him what he has to do. And he grabs the hatchet from Mildred's head. And he says, this is what he needed was the sacrifice of flesh. And he takes, after he gives her the finger, he takes his index finger and the hatchet and cuts his finger. I just hit myself in the headphones. He cuts his finger off. And so he can bind all the spirits to himself. Yeah. He's now chanted the thing. He needed the sacrifice of flesh. And she gets dragged backwards, like, off into the shadows. And he's there on the ground. And that vent from earlier where he had gotten the key belches blood up onto him.
Yeah.
And he's like, very, very, Evil Dead-esque again. Which there was a lot of little takes from Evil Dead. Then he takes duct tapes his hand, and then he cues up on the iPad or on something his outro song
music. Yeah.
And he's like, we beat this house. Yeah, everybody, we did it together. He goes, I beat this house. And then he goes, no, we beat this house. Yeah. And he's like he's going to be this new reformed person and all that.
He's like, no one offers you a more cinematic experience.
Yeah, this is all for you two. Yeah. And he's got like 5.9 to 6.1 million viewers. It just keeps going up and up and up and all this. And this, music is going over again. He goes, I am once again the #1 streamer on. And then you hear mama. Yeah. And the spirits from the house are now coming towards him. and they're like, "Mama," and it's every spirit that we've seen so far, and like dragging themselves. Some we haven't seen. It's like all these entities that have been trapped in this house, and they're all coming towards him. His POV, shot, and he's like, "Oh," and then it goes, connection lost. This stream is ended.
Yep,
and that's the end of the film.
That's it. Roll credits.
That's the end of the film. So, yeah. So
That's Deadstream.
That was Deadstream. Like we do every week, a little drum roll. Sir, what did you think of this film?
I really can't stand found footage stuff. This whole trend probably kicked off with the Blair Witch Project.
Oh yeah.
And it just went crazy from there. I have seen a few that have worked out well. As Above, So Below is one that I like. The Hell House movie, the first one, I thought was pretty good. Yeah. Decent enough. This movie, I thought was freaking brilliant from start to finish. Nobody has done found footage as well as this movie has done it. I'm just going to put it out there like that. And the whole YouTube angle, I think, is what really, really helps this one. Because if it was just a normal found footage movie, it would be pretty generic.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's this super obnoxious, over-the-top YouTuber who's doing this, and they just nail the aesthetics and the personality of that so perfectly. And with the chat coming up and just being able to read, I feel like I need to go back to this movie just to read some of the chat that I missed, Yeah. Because, yeah, man, I really liked this one. It's actually probably one of my favorites that we've watched. I thought it was hilarious and just super well done. Very thoughtful in everything that it did. So this one was a big win for me. What did you think?
Well, before we do that, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Hit that bell button.
It's all for you, YouTube.
Yeah, it's all for you, YouTube. Make sure you guys do that. Definitely do leave likes and comments. Make sure you guys subscribe anywhere that you can. We're on all forms of social media. Yeah, ding, ding, ding. All the little bells and whistles coming up right now. My thoughts on it. It could be because I'm biased because I am a YouTuber. I am familiar with how streaming works. I have done Twitch streaming. I'm hoping to get back into Twitch streaming again. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was fun. Yeah. It was like watching a live stream.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. It felt like you were in this live stream. It also felt like a movie.
Yeah.
But they played every aspect, like you were saying, of this YouTube live stream experience perfectly.
Yeah.
This is people who have done their research, not maybe just researched, but actually have lived and done this stuff from every little detail, like the chat, like we were talking about, to the names of the cameras, it was all sorts of different aspects of it that just made it fun and spot on for me. It was great. It's a definite go watch this film if you guys have not seen it.
And I really would encourage you to, because we gave away some of the jokes, but there are so many little quips that we did not.
Oh yeah,
and it is
so much. And I wanted to make sure that I did not give every little joke away and everything, because I'm like, oh my word, these are little treasures that you will get just from watching this, because the wit and the humor in it was so quick and so good. And just like little puns or little like things that he would do or things he would say, just little, side little bits or throw off little pieces that would be things people would genuinely say.
Yeah. I would love to know how much of this was scripted. Like if this was, Yeah, and if some of it was just ad-libbed, because so much of it comes across as though it was just thought of in the moment.
Yeah.
And so if it was scripted, that is really, really well done.
It's really well done and acted very well in a way where it seems like it's genuine. It wasn't acted like it was acted. It was acted as though I could see this guy actually throwing himself into this scenario and doing it as though he was live stream. I mean, I have enough personalities to know when you throw on certain hats and go, hey, but
well, and the like even the camera work, the filming was so well done because when you get these sort of like found footage things like this, it doesn't. A lot of times they really don't look great. They look cheap.
Yeah.
And I don't know, either that's because it is cheap, because you don't really have to set up a lot for that. If you're doing found footage, you can pass off the sort of maybe the low quality video or audio as just, well, no, that's because it's found footage.
Yeah.
This is just some dude with a camera.
That's how we pass off this show. It's all found footage.
I mean, look, we don't have 5 million live streaming viewers.
No.
But with this movie, it plays that. It's got that live stream vibe to it, but it's super high quality at the same time.
Very quality. Now, I thought they did a great job with this film. If you guys have not checked it out, make sure you guys check it out on Shudder.
Yeah.
Again, that was Deadstream. Great film.
Even if you're the type who usually just likes to listen to us tell the story, honestly,
you've got to watch it.
Watch it.
It's more comedy than it is horror.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's got its horror elements, but if you like even watching those, like Ghost Adventures and stuff like that, you're gonna like this film just because it is so light.
Yeah.
In its horror aspect, it's just based on a horror story.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the first part of this movie is really funny, and it's almost just straight comedy. And there is this point where it does go dark, and he starts to realize he's in a serious situation here.
Yeah.
And then there's still humor peppered throughout. So it's not like it's just straight comedy all the way through, although it is humorous.
It is, but it is, but not all at the same time. But
it does get serious and pretty messed up. So
it's good. Yeah. It's good. Thumbs up from both of us.
Very happy with it.
Very well done. Very well done, guys. Speaking of other movies that you guys should be checking out, we've got some films that are going to be coming up here in the next few weeks, either in theaters or on some form of demand that you guys can check out. And they should be coming up onto the screen right about now.
There they are.
There they are. These are films that you can watch.
Watch these.
I'm sure one of us is pointing in the wrong direction. Even if we have it in the whole screen, it doesn't matter. But anyway, make sure you guys check these films that are coming out. We will probably be doing something with one of these at some point. Also, again, I'm going to say it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. While you were here, make sure you leave comments if there's any shows that you guys want us to check out. Remember, this is for you, YouTube. But anyway, next up, well, we got a little bit of time left. I want to jump into a little segment that we like to call Real Stories That Horrify You in the Real World in Life.
Is that what we call it?
Sure. Real tales of the horrorness.
All right.
Real horror tales. Horror tales. Woo! That's the new theme song. Anyway, this story comes back from the year 2007. This is when men were men and sheep were nervous. This has to do with a family. There was a series of cell phone calls to different families with terrifyingly specific death threats. The unidentified callers knew exactly what the families were doing and what they were wearing. The families would say that the calls would come at all hours of the night or even during the day, threatening to kill their children, their parents, the grandparents. Voicemails would arrive playing recordings of their own private conversations. Not just ones that they were having on the phone, actual private conversations just in life. One of them including with a local police detective. So they knew what was going on, even just, without the phones being on. The caller knows what they were wearing, what they were doing, and after months of investigation, police seemed powerless to stop them. This went on for months with the Kuykendall family, who reported the caller having a scratchy voice, and he was threatening to slit their throats. When the Fircrest, Washington police tried to find the culprit, the calls were traced back to their own phones. Even when the phones were turned off.
Okay.
It continued to get worse. The Kuykendalls and 2 other Fircrest families told ABC News that the callers were using their cell phones to spy on them, and they say that hackers know their every move, where they are, what they're doing, what they're wearing, and that they recorded all their private conversations. Still to this day, they do not know how or why.
What? Really?
Yes. So.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. Elon Musk.
I've heard of stuff like that happening, and it always ends up being like, oh, someone's been living in their attic the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a few other stories that I was looking at this week, and a couple of them were, like the 54-year-old man had somebody living in his attic for... That happened here locally. That was here in my town. One of them... a guy opened up his attic space and looked, and all he saw was a pair of eyes looking back at him, and they arrested this guy who had been living up in the attic for...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's nuts. But anyway, I don't trust cell phone companies. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust that cat. I don't trust anything.
You shouldn't.
Or your shirt. Don't trust that. But anyway, right before we close out, we like to do another little segment called Pick or Pass, unless you have a better name for it. Up until then, we're going to keep calling it this. But what we like to do is take films that we've watched recently and let you know whether or not you should pick them or maybe pass on them. So, Shane, I've been talking a lot. I'll let you talk for a minute. What you got?
Believe it or not, I actually have a horror short film pick this week.
Oh, do you now? The king of short films over here.
Yeah.
We don't have a ton of time, people.
No.
We have lives.
Yeah.
We're trying to balance things. So
yeah.
Anyway.
So this movie is it's only about 7 minutes long, so another short film.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Portrait of God.
Okay.
And it's about this apparently religious young woman who is doing this sort of like video presentation. It's hard to tell if it's maybe like for a school assignment or something.
Okay.
It's hard to tell. But she's recording audio for this thing, and she's like, this is a painting. Or actually, it's a photograph of a painting, right? And all that's up there is this black screen.
Okay.
And she's like, "Can you see anything?" Because most people can't, but those who can describe a figure, a presence, right? And they're all uncannily similar. All the accounts are similar.
Okay.
Right. And so that's basically the premise of what happens here. And as she, you've edited video before, you've filmed stuff before, the first take isn't always the best. So she decides to go for a second take. And it's from there that things get a little weird. And so I would say I will add this to the description on YouTube when we post this video. So yeah, it's called Portrait of God. 7 minutes long, absolutely worth a look. It is
nice,
quite the creepy one.
Nice.
So yes, worth checking out.
So it's a pick from you.
It is a pick, as usual.
It is a pick. Nice.
Or short film pick.
As per usual.
Yes. What you got this week, Chris?
I've actually got a film, and for me, it's a pick this week. I'm going to try to get some passes again in here, but it's a film called American Satan.
Okay.
It's a film about a rock band who is just starting out. And they want to become famous and are struggling until they meet a man named Mr. Capricorn, who is played by Malcolm McDowell.
Nice.
Who may or may not be all that he seems, as he helps them find success. And some dark things start happening to themselves as well as people around them. And is Mr. Capricorn exactly who he says he is? Or is he something more? And have they sold their souls to get their fame? But anyway, the lead singer of the band, Johnny Faust, is played by Andy Biersack, who is the lead singer of the rock band, the Black Veil Brides. So anyway, it is a real life singer. Black Veil Brides are a great band too. But anyway, it's a great movie. It's worth watching. It gets really dark.
Yeah.
After a while. Yeah. But the music industry is very well portrayed in this film, being that I tried working in that as well at one point. But anyway, they did a great job with it. And Andy Biersack did phenomenal. So the whole cast was great in it. It's also got some very familiar faces that you're like, hey, I know those people. I know that guy. So anyway, it's worth checking out. American Satan. You guys can find that streaming, I believe, on it's one that I actually own. So, whoa, your cat's eating cereal. Yeah. It's one that I actually own because it was one that I was like, this looks interesting. I'll just pick it up. So, nice. But yeah, you can stream it a lot of different places, I'm sure. But I like physical copies of stuff still. But anyway, that's it for this week. What do we have coming up next week? That is a surprise, YouTube. That is a surprise. We have something very big in store for you. Or do we? Anyway, stay tuned to find out. We will be announcing later this week what we will be doing for next week. But yeah, stay tuned. Make sure you guys like and subscribe so you can find out what this news is, because it's big. I hope. And make sure you guys follow us on social media as well. Our stuff is right down here below us. But you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Casters of Horror. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't, whatever. So we'll see you guys next week. Until next week, peace out. We'll see you guys. Ha 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 ha.